Welcome to Public Policy's Roundtable for the month of June. We hope you find this discussion insightful. I will invite our columnist Sudikshna to take it forward from here by introducing the topic we have at hand.
So greetings, everyone. Thank you for being present here. And I invite all the panelists and thank them for indulging in this discussion. So today's topic is pretty much related to what was a big news recently. On 28th May, our new Parliament building was inaugurated. It was in news like everywhere. And with that inauguration, a pretty important thing happened as well, which will write our history, and that was installation of Sengol. It was a scepter symbolizing something. So with that, our today's discussion will be around scepter, the Sengol, symbols acquiring meaning. How that is it a normal scepter, and how we as human beings perceive, and how some symbols, not only just that symbol, but some symbols influence our behaviors, and how can we express our values towards those symbols. So starting with very basic question, that what was the event all about, and the scepter which I'm talking about, the symbol for righteousness, as our prime minister have mentioned in many of his speeches. So what is it all about, and why was there a concept of installing scepter when we have so many symbols already in our parliamentary building that was installed adjacent to speaker's seat? So I open the floor to answers for our first question. That is, what do you think is the historical significance of that Sengol, and how is it relevant for installing in our parliamentary building? So yes, Soumya, you would like to go forward with it, and then after Soumya, Shilpa can go forward.
Sure. So to begin with, I'd like the audience to think about how the recent coronation of King Charles gave us a fair idea of how integral symbolism is for the British. And this is probably why back then Lord Mountbatten felt the need for a ritual to signify the transfer of power to Nehru. So when he asked this question to Nehru, Nehru took this issue to Rajagopalachari, who's popularly known as Rajaji. He was also the last Governor General of India. And Rajaji felt that the Chola tradition of transfer of power could be adopted. So this idea of using a scepter has essentially been borrowed from the Chola traditions of transfer of power. Under this, the king used to receive the scepter from the Rajguru, who was essentially a Shiva devotee. For this, Rajagopalachari went to the head seer of a prominent mutt in Tamil Nadu, who took on the responsibility of having the scepter crafted, and this was done by a reputed jeweler, Umri Bangaru Shetty, down south. Now, the fact that this was from down south has a great significance. Let's talk a little about the scepter. So the scepter which has been installed in the parliament is actually a 5 feet long gold plated thing with a Nandi crowned on it. And Nandi itself has tremendous significance because it has 4 legs which symbolize Satya or truth, Dharma or righteousness, Shanti or peace, and fame. So the Sengol was first handed over to Mountbatten after it was crafted, which he handed back to the head seer, and then it was sprinkled with holy water, which was a symbol of like washing away the sins of the British rule. And then it was in a procession taken to Nehru and handed over to him 15 minutes before midnight. What is important to note here is the fact that the event of sanctifying and legitimizing the transfer of power to Nehru was not carried on by a British but by a Hindu seer. So it symbolized how back then also India's connection with its spiritual ancient traditions was alive. And uh, clinging on to this idea of transfer of power, the scepter that has been installed in the parliament, it is a symbol of demonstrating how the ruler derives his powers from the divine and is the sole agency in the political matters to give the final decision. That is why it has been installed next to the seat of the speaker.
Thank you. That was a comprehensive answer. Shilpa, would you like to go after Soumya now?
Thank you. So just adding on to the points that Soumya had said. So like Soumya had said, the symbol of Sengol would mark the transfer of power when India attained independence. And again, Prime Minister Nehru had put that pressure on Mr. Rajagopalacharya to come up with a sceptre to mark the transfer of power. And again, adding on to the point as well, the term Sengol, it's interesting to understand that it's a compound word which has been derived from the phrase Semmayana call, which means the baton of perfection. And historically, also, like Samya had said, it was used during the reign of Cholas, and it was considered as a symbol of righteousness and justice, which is only to be yielded by a worthy leader. And that brings us to the contemporary significance of the Sengol. So, currently the current significance is not really known to many people, and the installation of the Sengol in the new parliament brings our attention to the significance of Sengol and to our past as well. So essentially it's connecting the Sengol is a connect to our past and cultural traditions with modernity. So one can say that the installation of Sengol near the speaker implies a responsibility of the speaker to uphold righteous governance, because the speaker is one of the most important members of the parliamentary system. So again, there's a huge symbolic reference to Sengol, and like Soumya had said, it also one could also say that it marks the transfer of power, transfer of um, India's new parliament as well. This is the first parliament since the Indian independence that we've considered the first new parliament. So it could also essentially symbolize that. So I just wanted to add these points.
Thank you, Shilpa. Soumya, would you like to add some more information?
Yeah, I think what Shilpa said was actually really important. How it connects us to our past. It says that the modern India is also connected to its ancient times. And we find an evidence of this even in the preamble, which says that um, India, modern India, which is Bharat. And Bharat was an ancient name that we used to use, right? So I think small places, like even in the first original draft of the Constitution, there have been places where scenes from the mythology stories have been presented. So small things like that, and even how now the scepter has been installed, shows us time and again how India, which is modernizing and evolving, still has its roots in its ancient civilizations.
Yes, you all were amazing. I mean, I understand how this symbol has been installed there, and you people have rightly mentioned about the meaning of Sengol deriving from a Tamil phrase, which Shilpa, said. Moreover, the righteous governance which it symbolizes, and the the roots. I mean, it is establishing our roots. It is kind of connecting us with the roots, and the fact that it is installed adjacent to speaker's seat is kind of it gives the responsibility to speaker to be righteous while he's taking all these decisions. So since we have understood the history and its significance in today's world, it is imperative that with the positive aspect, we should discuss the negative aspect as well. Negative in the sense, just a critique of what, I mean, why was it installed and why not any other symbol? And not from a political point of view, but from a scholarly point of view as well. So I open the floor for discussing the critique behind installing the event of installing this scepter and the origins that they have. So anyone who would like to take this question?
Yeah, I would like to add here. So, when this project of Central Vista, the redevelopment project, was underway, the government decided to revive this historical event of placing a symbol and install it in the new Parliament building. It is placed near the Speaker's seat in the new Parliament building and will be accompanied by a plaque that will explain its history and meaning as a symbol of righteousness and the transfer of power. The installation in the new parliament is not just a symbolic gesture, but it also has a meaningful message, of course. It signifies India's democracy is that it is rooted in its Indian ancient traditions and values. It is inclusive and respectful of its diversity and plurality. But the event has come into a lot of criticism also, questioning its necessity or significance. In the past, as it has been stated already by Soumya and Shilpa, that it was used by the it was used uh, widely in the by the Chola kingdom. At present, the controversy is basically around the political motive. That the politics surrounding the Sengol symbol can be seen in the context of BJP's the National Party, who has been trying to develop its outreach in the state of Tamil Nadu or overall southern states, as if you want to say like that. For a long time, the National Party at the center has been trying, and it has been trying very hard to make inroads in the state and for the people as well. So this event of placing scepter again can be seen as a continuation of the Kashi Temple Sangamam that was held, the event that was held last year. It was a Sangam where cultural, religious, and civilizational links between the north and the south were re-established by the central government, and there has been enormous controversy surrounding the issue that opposition parties have stated that the inauguration and the placing of the symbol should have been done by the President of India and not the Prime Minister. So these are two major controversies regarding the symbol right now.
Yes, so
Well,
would you like to add something upon?
sure. So while I do acknowledge the fact that there are these controversies, but I also think that this brings us to very fundamental questions of the values that, the Nehruvian secularism has been associated. Like rationalists have gone lengths in Nehruvian secularism to deny the Hindu past of the nation and say that country is actually secular. But even if we look at the history when this was handed over to Nehru, holy water was sprinkled him. And I'm quoting this from The Freedom at Night by Dominique Lapierre, when he said, when it was mentioned that Nehru, he was sprinkled holy water on him, and he was draped in a holy cloth of God called Pitambaram, which, for the benefit of the audience, is one of the names associated with Lord Krishna by his followers. And he was offered boiled rice from Nataraja's temple, and ashes were smeared on his head. So, and he willingly submitted to all this and accepted the scepter. Now, Nehru, who had been the most vocal about disassociating India with any religious image, but in this historic moment, this proud rationalist knew that he could not ignore even the religious occults. And that is why I think he willingly accepted and submitted to it. So the question that still looms is that India, which aims to be a secular country, if we keep on bringing up such symbols which are escaped from the past, definitely, but have also a deep and significant association to religion, if these symbols coming up, can we ever look at a country which is secular? Because this is in a way, so when this came up, we all read about it, and we now know how strongly it is related to religion. So if we keep on bringing symbols from the past which have such a rich historical and religious significance, can we ever move to a country which is secular? I'm not sure if this is a progressive um, a progressive indication for the world, because people do look at the acts of the country as symbols of where they're heading. So I'm not sure if this is the right way to go.
Yes, thank you, Soumya. Anyone who would like to add to this info? So as discussed by Soumya and Aina, they have, I guess, highlighted two major questions. I would say that they have opened, I mean, we should ponder upon this question. First of all, is BJP being a national party? Do they have some political mileage? Moreover, with upcoming Tamil Nadu elections, you never know that this might be one of their, you know, I political acts or something. The second question which was raised was the inclusion of the people of higher order. That is, it would have been installed not by prime minister but by maybe by the president. And the third important question is whether installing these symbols which are of significance from our past, is it kind of showing secularism, or is it promoting secularism, or is it just a depiction of a dominant religion, of what I call of how they are being dominant or how they are represented. So now going with all the, now we have an idea of what the historical significance is and why is it installed. I mean, what might be the thought process of the ones who have decided to install. So why only the symbol of scepter? And why not some other tool or weaponry? And what is the significance of scepter from the world perspective? This is not the first time a scepter is used. It is used in past to signify a lot of things. And how this installation of our scepter is different from their scepter. I mean, the area that these covers. So I open the floor to discuss our third question, which is significant of scepter used as a symbol in comparison with the event. I mean, the event that we are discussing, and purposes, the general purposes that have been used in the world. Anyone who would like to answer?
Okay, so the scepter has been a part of monarchy and ruling dynasties in the past and across the world. It has been with the ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, also the Greco-Roman and the post-Christianity. For the Christianity, it was more like the scepter was often tipped with a cross instead of the eagle. However, during the Middle Ages, they changed it. The finals of the top was they were varied considerably. The If I talk about the purpose for the Chola kingdom, it is for India. It started with Chola kingdom, where it was a symbol of righteousness, and it was carried by the emperors or the ceremonial occasions and used to represent their authority. It was associated with the empire, one of the longest ruling and the most influential dynasties of the South India. Uh, and yeah, that's it.
Anyone who would like to add upon this information? Yes, Soumya, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think what Anna mentioned was really correct, that the purpose of scepter has remained consistent in representing authority, power, and the ability to govern, as was shown correctly by the Chola kingdom. But I think it has also a lot of times, based on the material that it was made of, it has been a symbol of the monarch's wealth and status also, because in the past, in order to establish geopolitical power across the world, countries do have to have certain symbols which signify their status. So for example, in the medieval Europe, the scepter was made of precious materials and adorned with gemstones so that it could emphasize how wealthy the monarch was. But I think, other than the fact that it has been a consistent symbol of authority, a lot of times the use of scepter has also um, a lot of tradition and continuity seeped into it. Like in the British monarchy, the scepter is used during the coronation ceremony, but it holds no governing authority. As far as I know, the orb has more like signifies governing authority, while the scepter here is just a representation of tradition, continuity, and the monarch's place within the constitutional framework. Also, one question that comes to my mind is that in all these places, the scepter has been consistently used by the monarchy. But in a country like India, the idea is not to say that the speaker is the sole governing authority, because the country goes on the decisions made by the people and for the people. So I think it's about saying that the last word in a political discussion would be like the last stance would that be of that of the speaker. So I think it's more like neutral for the people, because in the monarchies decisions are imposed, but here that cannot happen. So I'm really not clear on that part.
Thank you, Soumya.
Yeah,
Aina, would you like to add?
yeah, I can just add another examples of the royal scepter of the United Kingdom. It was the sovereign scepter with the cross is a part where the cross is a part of the crown, crown jewels of the United Kingdom, where it symbolizes the monarch's authority, and it has been traditionally held during the coronation ceremony that has been going for for history, as we know, representing the ruler's sovereignty and divine right to rule. And then there is an example of Egypt where the pharaohs, in the ancient Egypt, the pharaohs wielded a crook and a flail, collectively known as a scepter of the pharaohs. It symbolizes the pharaoh's rule as a shepherd and the guardian of the people, while the flail represented the power and the authority to punish or reward.
Thank you, Aina. So, with this discussion, we are slightly moving forward with the second part of this. I mean, this whole discussion, which was symbols acquiring meaning. So, our couple of questions are kind of open ended, and I would request each and every one of you to express your ideas about symbols generally used in our life and how we acquire meaning towards and how we associate with those symbols, and is it the right way for our lives to approach in these manner, like in the scepter example we had this British which represented monarchy, and ours is like opposite with what it is. So I think with each country, or maybe each symbol is different from different for one or other. So I open the floor for, opinion based on how you feel, and what is the reason behind using symbols in life in general and by authorities. Shilpa, starting with you.
Um, Hi. So, like you said, when the significance of symbols, it's growing enormously, and I feel like to an extent it lies in the ability of these symbols to convey meanings and to communicate information that goes beyond words and documents. So, that's a special reason why the entire concept of symbolic cognition is very crucial when it comes to human behavioral understanding, or to communicate as well. Because when a person encounters a sign, automatically you're decoding and recoding, you're thinking on it, you're acting on it. There are so many factors that goes beyond what happens while you're encountering a sign. So due to all these reasons and many other scientific reasons, we see the emergence of symbols, and also along with it we see that once you can also see that individuals, once they see a symbol, it's easy for us to correlate with the symbol, to correlate various multiple meanings associated with the symbol. And a symbol essentially can convey a lot more than a sentence or a paragraph. It can be attached to so many multiple other meanings. And so the flexibility that symbols bring in is enormous, because you can represent and you can also manipulate abstract concepts, and you can make a numerous number of inferences, be it complex or simple. So with that regard, you should appreciate the relevance of symbols, and it's taking so much traction in the contemporary world. And like they mentioned before, the way that UK uses the scepter. And right now, India is also pushing for symbolism with the whole Sengol that we're talking about. So I believe that symbols essentially serve as a vehicle for communication. It conveys a lot more than mere little meanings, and it can influence behavior by, I say, by eliciting specific responses or multiple other meanings, or so much more. So yeah, I feel like symbols currently in the contemporary world, they do play a crucial role in that regard.
Yes, you were right. Yes, if you'd like to add. Okay, fine. So first Aina, and then you can go forward. Aina, you can go forward with it.
Yeah, so adding on to the Shilpa's point, so one of the ways the symbols have been used by the government for several reasons. And one of them could be the representation, like identity. This was a visual representation of what a society is, or what a government is, or how a political entity in that nation is formed. They encapsulate the identity, value, the aspirations of the society, providing a sense of unity. For we can take the example of the Statue of Liberty, and how United States have been trying to push forward its ideals of liberty, freedom, and independence using that symbol. So it tries to build its own identity and the perceptions of its people. That is the point I wanted to add.
Yeah, that was indeed a good point. Soumya, if you would like to add something.
Yeah, mine is just a continuation to what Aina just mentioned, say about the Statue of Liberty. Now, what if we remove the flame of freedom from the Statue of Liberty and instead replace it with an assault rifle? I think this is how the perception changes, because um, and I think this is one because of the fact that, as Shilpa mentioned, that it does elicit certain responses. And this is why I think there was this great controversy about another thing in the parliament, which was the establishment of the statue of the lions. People said that the calm, confident, reassuring lions have been replaced by a set of snarling, menacing lions, which feels like India is kind of giving a warning. Or trying to depict that it might have a more aggressive outlook towards world affairs, given its building army, etc. So I think it's very important for a country's identity to be represented via the symbols it shows to the world.
Thank you, Soumya. So some very great points were made during the discussion, which was one point on flexibility that a symbol can attain a meaning. The second is perception, and leading to the examples that were presented in the theme about the Statue of Liberty being replaced with, arms and immunization. So I think with all this thing, I can to some extent conclude that it's upon individuals to derive meaning out of a mere thing which is kept in front of them, and that's something which will memorize them, or at least by viewing those symbols they'll remember our history and everything. I think that was the uh, thought process behind installing our Sengol in the parliamentary building as well. So with this I conclude our roundtable discussion on Sengol symbols acquiring meaning, and I hope you got some insights about these symbols and how these are used in our day-to-day basis, and how many other symbols in parliament has been used. I mean, each and every I would say brick has a deep meaning, be it the carpets or anything. So this was it, and I hope you enjoyed researching upon this topic, and thank you for being present here. And I hand over to Madhumita for some concluding remarks, and then we'll end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudikshna, and thank you, team, for that lovely and very insightful discussion on Sengol. I think it was very timely that we had this discussion today, especially in the public policy cluster. So I thank our viewers, I thank our audience, I thank all of the cluster members, and especially Sudikshna for coming up with this topic and bringing this discussion. So I think that concludes today's meeting, and we look forward to see you in our next episodes. Thank you.